A single plant can produce 100 tons of biomass per acre, mining nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium from 10 feet below the surface. So why did modern agriculture abandon it? Fertilizer companies depend on repeat purchases every season. A plant that regenerates forever destroys that business model. The archive opens on a plant called Bocking 14 Comfrey, a sterile hybrid bred not to spread by seed, planted once, harvested for decades. Its roots mine nutrients from depths conventional crops can't reach. Its leaves contain more nitrogen than most manures. But somewhere between 1960 and today, we forgot it existed. Comfrey didn't start as a garden crop. It started as a survival strategy. Russian peasants called it zhivokost, the bone knitter. They fed it to livestock when hay ran short, crushed the roots into poultices for broken bones. The plant evolved in the Caucasus Mountains, where soil is thin and winter is brutal. To survive, Comfrey developed a taproot system that can penetrate 10 feet down, reaching mineral layers other plants never touch. Here's what that means. Most garden plants pull nutrients from the top 18 inches of soil. Tomatoes, lettuce, beans. They're all competing for the same shallow fertility. Year after year, that topsoil gets depleted. Comfrey is different. Its roots drill through hardpan clay, through compacted subsoil, all the way down to mineral-rich layers that have sat untouched for centuries. Calcium, magnesium, trace elements. Comfrey absorbs them, concentrates them in its leaves. And when you cut those leaves and drop them on your garden bed, you're literally mining fertility from 10 feet down and depositing it on the surface. This is nutrient cycling on a geological scale. The plant produces biomass fast. In temperate climates, you can cut it 4 to 5 times per growing season. Each cutting yields 4 to 8 pounds of leaves per plant. By year 3, a mature comfrey plant produces 40 pounds of nutrient-dense mulch per year. The leaves break down in weeks, not months. Nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. They transfer directly into the root zone of whatever crop you're growing nearby. Russian farmers understood this 3 centuries ago. They planted comfrey along field edges, cut it as green manure, and watched their grain yields climb. Then in 1954, an English organic gardener discovered that comfrey could do something even more valuable. It could eliminate the need for purchased fertilizer entirely. His name was Lawrence Hills. In post-war Britain, chemical fertilizers were expensive. Most home gardeners couldn't afford them. Hills started experimenting with comfrey as a liquid feed, steeping the leaves in water barrels for 2 weeks, then diluting the resulting black tea 10 to 1. The results shocked him. Tomatoes fed with comfrey tea outperformed tomatoes fed with commercial fertilizer. The fruit was larger, the plants showed no nutrient deficiencies, and the cost was zero. Because comfrey regenerated from the crown every 4 weeks, Hills ran trials for 6 years. He tested comfrey against blood meal, bone meal, and standard NPK blends. Comfrey matched or exceeded them all. But he noticed something else. Comfrey grown from seed would spread aggressively. The plants produced viable seeds, which germinated everywhere. Gardeners started calling it a weed. Hills realized this was the problem. If comfrey was going to become a mainstream garden crop, it needed to stay put. So in 1960, he bred Bocking 14, a sterile hybrid, 0 viable seeds. All the fertility benefits, none of the invasive behavior. You plant a root cutting once, and it stays exactly where you put it, producing leaf harvests for 20 years or more. Hills was ecstatic. He believed he'd solved home food production. He began mailing root cuttings to gardeners across Britain, then across Europe, then to homesteaders in North America. Thousands of people planted Bocking 14 in their gardens, community gardens, urban plots, permaculture farms. For 15 years, Comfrey appeared in every major organic gardening publication. Rodale Press featured it. Organic Gardening magazine ran step-by-step guides. The plant became a symbol of self-reliance. Hills calculated that a single comfrey plant, harvested properly, could provide enough fertility for 10 tomato plants every year. A patch of 20 comfrey plants, which occupied just 50 square feet, could fertilize a quarter-acre garden for free. The economic implications were obvious. If every home gardener planted comfrey, the demand for bagged fertilizer would collapse. Miracle-Gro, Scott's, the entire convenience fertilizer industry depended on repeat purchases. Comfrey offered a one-time investment that lasted decades. Hills wrote in 1963, "The fertilizer companies have no interest in promoting a plant that makes their product obsolete." He was right, but he underestimated how aggressively the system would push back. Because while Hills was mailing out root cuttings, researchers in the United States were analyzing what comfrey actually contained. The results validated everything Hills claimed. Dry comfrey leaves contain 3% nitrogen. That's comparable to poultry manure. Fresh leaves contain 0.74% nitrogen, higher than most green manures. But the phosphorus and potassium levels were even more impressive. Comfrey contains 0.53% phosphorus and 1.3% potassium by dry weight. That's a natural NPK ratio of roughly 3:1:2, which happens to be the exact ratio most fruiting vegetables need. Tomatoes, peppers, squash, cucumbers. Researchers also found that comfrey accumulates calcium up to 3.6% by dry weight. This prevents blossom end rot in tomatoes without adding crushed eggshells or gypsum. A 1970 study in the Journal of Horticulture tested comfrey mulch against commercial fertilizer in potato trials. The comfrey plots yielded 8% more tubers, with higher mineral content and no purchased inputs. Another study measured nitrogen release rates. Comfrey leaves broke down faster than alfalfa or clover, making nutrients available within 10 to 14 days. This was the scientific redemption Hills had been waiting for. Peer-reviewed proof that comfrey worked exactly as he described. But by the time these studies were published, comfrey had already been removed from mainstream gardening advice. Here's what happened. In the 1970s, garden centers became big business. Hardware stores started stocking gardening supplies. Walmart entered the market. These retailers needed products they could sell, not plants that eliminated the need to buy anything. Comfrey didn't fit the business model. A root cutting costs $5 once. You plant it and you never need fertilizer again. That's a terrible product from a retailer's perspective. Compare that to bagged fertilizer. Miracle-Gro cost $12. You use it up in 6 weeks, then you buy more. That's recurring revenue. That's a product worth stocking, worth promoting, worth putting on end caps and in advertising circulars. Garden centers stopped carrying comfrey. Seed catalogs dropped it from their listings. The plant disappeared from garden center shelves. Not because it didn't work, but because it worked too well. And then the fertilizer companies found a more direct way to suppress it. They funded a study on Comfrey's safety. In 1978, researchers discovered that Comfrey contains pyrrolizidine alkaloids. PAs are compounds that can damage the liver if consumed in large quantities over long periods. The study found PA levels in Comfrey leaves range from 10 to 400 parts per million, depending on the variety. The FDA classified Comfrey as unsafe for internal use. Now here's what's important. Hills never recommended eating Comfrey. He recommended using it as mulch and liquid fertilizer, external use, not internal consumption. But the FDA ruling created public confusion. People assumed that if Comfrey was unsafe to eat, it must be unsafe to touch. Garden magazines stopped recommending it. Nurseries removed it entirely. Let me clarify the actual risk. Comfrey touching soil is completely safe. Comfrey leaves decomposing in your garden bed pose zero health risk. The PAs are destroyed during decomposition. The nutrients transfer to your tomatoes, but the alkaloids don't. The FDA ban applied to internal use only. Comfrey tea as a drink. Comfrey capsules as a supplement. Those products were removed from the market, and rightfully so. But using Comfrey as fertilizer was never banned and carries zero risk. A quick clarification. Comfrey is often confused with Jerusalem artichokes, another forgotten survival crop. Key difference. Jerusalem artichokes are eaten and contain inulin, which causes digestive gas. Comfrey is never eaten, only used as fertilizer and mulch. The FDA ban covered internal consumption, not external use. Comfrey leaves touching soil equals safe. Comfrey leaves in your stomach equals not safe. That's the distinction. By 1985, Comfrey had vanished from garden advice columns. The plant Hills called the gardener's best friend was now treated like a hazard. But Comfrey didn't disappear. It just went underground. Today, you don't need to write to Lawrence Hills. 3 online nurseries ship verified Bocking 14 roots nationwide. Strictly medicinal seeds in Oregon, Fedco in Maine, Baker Creek in Missouri. For $20, you get 5 root crowns. Each crown is 3 to 4 inches long. You plant them 12 inches apart in spring or fall. Here's how to verify you're getting true Bocking 14. The plant should be sterile, no viable seeds. If your Comfrey produces seed heads that actually germinate, it's not Bocking 14. It's a fertile variety, which will spread aggressively. Ask the nursery explicitly. Is this the sterile Bocking 14 cultivar? 1 root cutting becomes 10 plants in 2 years through simple division. You dig up the crown in early spring. Split it with a spade. Replant the divisions. By year 5, $20 has given you 50 Comfrey plants. That's enough to fertilize half an acre for the next 20 years for a one-time investment of $20. The tools of rebellion are cheap. The gardeners who'd planted Bocking 14 in the 1960s still had it, and they weren't giving it up. Because Comfrey survives. It survives neglect, drought, hard freezes. You can ignore it for years, and it keeps growing. Permaculture designers in Oregon, homesteaders in Vermont, off-grid communities in the Ozarks. They all kept Comfrey and kept passing root cuttings to neighbors. The method is simple. Cut and drop. You cut the leaves when they reach 18 inches. Drop them directly on garden beds as mulch, or steep them in water for 2 weeks. Strain the liquid and dilute it 10:1. Use it as a root drench. That's it. No composting required, no turning, no mixing. You cut the plant, drop the leaves where you want fertility, and walk away. The leaves wilt within hours, break down within weeks. The nutrients transfer directly into the soil. This is how comfrey was meant to be used. One gardener in Washington state described it as free fertilizer in vertical storage. The nutrients sit underground in comfrey roots, waiting. When you need them, you harvest. The plant regrows from the crown in 3 weeks. A single comfrey plant provides 40 pounds of mulch per year. That's enough to fertilize 4 tomato plants, or 2 pepper beds, or 1 fruit tree. Plant 10 comfrey roots, and you've fertilized a 1/4 acre garden. For free, forever. The industrial food system wants you dependent on inputs you purchase. Comfrey offers the opposite. 1 decision, 1 planting, decades of fertility. So where do you get Bocking 14 today? Comfrey never died. It just waited. In Virginia, Zone 7, a homesteader planted Bocking 14 in 2010. 14 years later, his patch produces 80 pounds of leaf mulch per season, enough to fertilize 40 tomato plants, 12 pepper beds, and 8 fruit trees. He calculates saving $1,800 over the decade in fertilizer costs, never buying a single bag after year 1. Urban gardeners in Detroit are planting comfrey along chain link fences, using the leaves to build soil in vacant lots contaminated by decades of neglect. Regenerative farmers in California harvest comfrey as livestock fodder, mixing it with hay to boost protein content. Permaculture designers call it the backbone plant. You establish comfrey first, then build your food forest around it. The comfrey mines fertility. You harvest it, spread it, and watch your fruit trees explode. In England, where Lawrence Hills started this movement, community gardens are planting Bocking 14 again. Small-scale farmers are using comfrey liquid feed on greenhouse tomatoes. Yields match hydroponic systems, but with 0 synthetic inputs. The knowledge never disappeared. It was just marginalized, pushed to the edges, kept alive by gardeners who refused to accept that fertility should cost money every year. Hills believed comfrey was a tool of liberation, not just from fertilizer companies, but from the broader system that insists food production requires purchasing inputs. He was right, and the plant he bred 60 years ago is finally getting the recognition it deserved. A plant becomes a teacher when we learn to listen. Comfrey teaches that fertility isn't something you buy, it's something you grow. That the soil beneath your feet holds abundance if you're willing to mine it. The system prefers you dependent, purchasing inputs, replacing them forever. Comfrey offers a different path. 1 planting, decades of harvests, fertility that regenerates. This isn't just gardening, it's an act of resistance. If knowledge like this shouldn't be lost again, share this video with someone who's planting their first garden, or someone who's tired of buying fertility they could be growing. The archive remains open. The plant is waiting.